Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. Julia and I were sitting at our dining table one Thursday evening, laptops open, wine glasses half full, going over the guest list for our engagement party. It was supposed to be a night of simple planning, finalize names, confirm the caterer, and send out the last few invitations. Okay, she said, scrolling through her contacts. I'll add my cousin Elise. And oh, Lucian too. I looked up. Lucian? She didn't even glance at me, just kept typing. Yes, Lucian. Your ex-boyfriend? Julia finally looked at me, expression unreadable. He's part of my life. He was there for me before you ever were. She tilted her head slightly, studying me like she was waiting for a reaction. You're not insecure, are you, Oscar? I set my pen down. This isn't about insecurity. This is our engagement party. Why would your ex belong there? Her lips curled into something between a smirk and a dare. Because I decide who matters to me. And let me be clear, I don't owe you loyalty, Oscar. We're not married yet. I sat back in my chair, letting the words settle. Not owing me loyalty, she said it as if it were a legal clause, not a relationship. Julia, I said carefully, we've lived together for 2 years. We share a lease, a joint account, and a wedding date. And you think loyalty starts after a certificate? She gave a short laugh. You're being dramatic. It's just a party. Don't try to control me. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. Instead, I looked at her and said, do what you think is appropriate. That night, she stayed up on the couch, giggling at her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen. When I asked who she was talking to, she said it was work stuff. At 11, on a Thursday. Lying in bed, I repeated her words in my head. I don't owe you loyalty. It was the kind of sentence you don't forget. The next morning, Julia was all smiles, talking about table decorations and color schemes as if nothing had happened the night before. I nodded where appropriate and kept my thoughts to myself. I had learned something important from her sentence. When someone tells you they don't owe you loyalty, believe them. So I decided to prepare. Quietly. That afternoon at work, I logged into our bank account during my lunch break. $15,000 sat in the wedding fund. 12 of those were mine, 3 were hers. I transferred my contribution into my personal savings. No drama, just numbers moving across a screen. Next, I called the caterer and photographer. Both contracts were under my name. I canceled politely. Same with the florist. A few deposits were lost, but I didn't care. Better to cut the cord now than later. By the weekend, I had signed a short-term lease for a studio apartment across town, month to month, nothing permanent. Close to the office, quiet, just enough space for one person. I didn't move in right away, but I began packing quietly, essentials first, clothes, important documents, and my work gear. I stacked the boxes where Julia wouldn't notice. To her, it probably looked like I was just reorganizing. That way, if the time came, I could be gone in a single trip. That evening, I called my sister Celine. She was a lawyer, sharp as a blade, never sugarcoating anything. After I explained, Celine was silent for a moment, then laughed softly. You're not paranoid, Oscar. You're prepared. Good. Don't tip your hand. Just watch. I'm not planning to start a fight at the party, I told her. But if the situation confirms what I already suspect, I'll be ready to walk. Better a clean exit than years of patchwork lies, Celine said. That night, Julia came into bed humming, still glued to her phone. I rolled over and stared at the ceiling. The decision was already made. I just needed the right moment. The engagement party would give me the answer. The night of the engagement party came fast. Julia was glowing, flitting around the room as guests arrived, introducing people, laughing too loudly. For a while, I almost convinced myself it might stay civil. Then Lucian walked in. He had that polished look, tailored jacket, slick smile, holding a bottle of vintage Bordeaux like he was gifting royalty. He moved straight toward Julia, arms wide. Jules, he said, pulling her into a hug that lasted too long. You haven't changed a bit. She beamed. Lucian, I'm so glad you came. He handed her the bottle, then produced a small framed photograph, an old black and white street shot of Paris. For your hallway, he said, his voice low. Thought you'd appreciate the memory. Julia touched the frame as if it were a treasure. You always remember the details. I stood a few steps away, watching. A couple of guests raised eyebrows, whispering. I let it unfold. Through the evening, Lucian stuck close to her side, hand on her back, leaning in to whisper, laughing at private jokes. Julia didn't stop him. She let it happen, smiling like it was all perfectly normal. At one point, I went to grab a soda from the bar and caught Julia's coworker, Lisette, whispering to another guest. "She told me she's not even sure she loves him," Lisette said. "She says Lucian makes her feel alive." The words hit like confirmation of what I already knew. I didn't confront Julia. I didn't confront Lucian. Instead, I walked over to the DJ and asked for the microphone. The music cut and the room quieted. I raised my glass. "Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight." To Julia, "May you find exactly what you're looking for, because clearly, it isn't me." I set the microphone back in the DJ's hand and walked out. No shouting, no theatrics, just one clean exit. Behind me, I heard Julia's voice, sharp with panic. "Oscar, what are you doing? Come back!" But I didn't look. My phone buzzed in my pocket before I reached the parking lot. By the time I drove away, it was vibrating nonstop. I turned the ringer off. I headed straight for the studio I had rented before. The keys were in my glove box, waiting. By the time I stepped inside that bare room, it felt more like home than the place I had just walked away from. It was past midnight when the pounding started. Heavy, angry knocks that rattled the door. I didn't move at first, just sat on the couch in the dark, listening. She shouldn't have known where I was, but we'd never turned off the shared locations on our phones. That's how she'd tracked me to the studio. Then Julia's voice cut through. "Open the door, Oscar! Don't you dare ignore me!" I opened it, and she stormed inside. Her heels clicked across the hardwood like gunshots. "Are you serious?" she demanded. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. My parents, my friends. You made me look like a fool." I leaned against the frame, calm. "You did that yourself, Julia." Her voice cracked, louder. "All because I invited Lucian? He's just a friend. You walked out on our engagement party. Do you have any idea how that looked?" "Yes," I said, like the truth finally caught up with us. She threw her hands up. "You're twisting this. I've told you. Lucian is nothing. You're acting paranoid." I didn't answer. I let her rage burn itself out. When she finally stormed into the kitchen for a glass of water, she set her phone down on the table without noticing. The screen lit up with a new notification, Lucian's name flashing bold. I picked it up before she came back. Message previews filled the screen. "Can't wait to see how it feels at the party. You'll finally show him where we stand. You know this marriage isn't right for you." The last one was dated 3 days before the party. Julia froze when she saw me holding the phone, her face drained of color. "What is that?" I asked quietly. She stammered. "It's nothing. You're reading it out of context." I set the phone down. "I don't need context. I have confirmation." She reached for my arm, desperate now. "Oscar, please." "It didn't mean anything. We can work this out." I shook her hand off gently. "You said you don't owe me loyalty. Tonight, I believed you." Her eyes filled with panic. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, opening the door. "But not tonight." She left with a slam that shook the glass. By Monday morning, the story was already circulating. I didn't have to explain anything. Word of mouth did it for me. A friend from work mentioned someone had posted photos from the party online. In the background of half the shots, Julia and Lucian stood too close, whispering, laughing, her hand on his arm. Later that week, my sister Celine called. "You won't believe this," she said. "I ran into one of Julia's coworkers at lunch. Everyone's talking about the party. They said it was humiliating, her ex clinging to her while you just walked out. They called it a spectacle." "I expected as much," I told her. "That's not all," Celine added. "One of her clients pulled out of a campaign. Said they don't want to be tied to someone whose personal judgment is questionable." I let out a slow breath. Julia worked in public relations. Image was her currency. Losing clients meant more than losing money. It meant her credibility was slipping. That evening, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Julia's mother, Mrs. Ellison. "Oscar," she said softly, "I wanted to apologize for what happened at your engagement party. I don't know what Julia was thinking." "You don't need to apologize for her," I said. "Still," she continued, "she embarrassed herself. And us. I raised her better than that." Her voice caught for a second before she steadied it. "I hope you know you didn't deserve any of this." When I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my studio apartment and realized I felt no anger, just clarity. Celine was right. I hadn't burned anything down. I had just stopped holding it up. Julia's world was unraveling, and I didn't have to lift a finger. It was a rainy Thursday when she showed up. No warning, no call, just a knock, softer this time. I opened the door to find Julia standing there in a long coat, hair damp, eyes ringed red. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in, looked around at the bare walls, the single chair, the folded clothes stacked neatly on a shelf. "So, this is where you've been living," she said, voice brittle. "It works," I replied. She sat on the edge of the bed, clutching her hands. "Lucian, he used me. He never wanted anything serious. He just wanted to prove he still had influence over me. And when he got what he wanted, he disappeared." I didn't move. "That sounds about right." Tears welled in her eyes. "Oscar, I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. We had years together. We were building something. We can still fix this." I shook my head slowly. "No, Julia. You didn't make a mistake. You made a series of choices. You told me to my face you don't owe me loyalty. You invited your ex to our engagement party. You let him hang on to you in front of everyone. That's not confusion." Her voice cracked. I was angry. I was confused. People make mistakes. Love means forgiveness, doesn't it? "Love means trust," I said, "and trust is gone." She stood, pacing the small room, growing frantic. "You're just going to throw this all away? You're not even going to try counseling? You'll regret this, Oscar. I know you will." I looked her in the eye, steady. "I already don't. I don't miss the lies. I don't miss competing with ghosts. What I have now is peace, and I won't give that up." Her face hardened. "You'll miss me. You'll see." I opened the door. "Goodbye, Julia." She hesitated, trembling, then stormed past me into the rain, slamming the door behind her. The room was silent again, and for the first time in months, I felt light. 6 months later, life looked different. I had settled into a steady rhythm. Work, gym, evenings that belonged to me. No arguments, no eggshells, no late-night phone buzzing. Just quiet. One Saturday, I was in the supermarket with a cart of basics when I heard a voice call my name. "Oscar?" I turned. Julia stood a few aisles over, a basket in hand. Beside her was a man about my age, well-dressed, carrying a bottle of wine. She smiled too brightly and walked over, dragging him along. "This is Niall," she said, squeezing his arm. "My boyfriend." "Niall, this is Oscar, my ex-fiancé." The man nodded politely, unsure. Julia tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "So, you've already replaced me? Or are you still alone?" I met her gaze calmly. "I don't measure life that way." She gave a sharp laugh, then turned to Niall. "He's insecure, you know. That's why he left me. He couldn't handle me having male friends." I let her words hang for a second before I spoke. "Tell him the real story, Julia. Tell him how you invited your ex to our engagement party and spent the night with his hand on your back while you told me you didn't owe me loyalty." Niall's face changed instantly. He looked at Julia, then back at me. "Is that true?" Julia stammered, It's not how it sounds." But Niall didn't wait. He set the wine down on a shelf, muttered something under his breath, and walked out of the store, leaving her standing there with nothing. She turned back to me, eyes wet. "You're happy now, aren't you?" I shook my head. "No, Julia. I'm free. That's better." I pushed my cart toward the checkout. I didn't look back. As I loaded groceries into my car, I thought of the night at our dining table, when she said she didn't owe me loyalty. That was the line in the sand. She drew it herself, and I believed her. Thank you for watching.